Hello, every pony. It's April 14th, Monday, and I have just completed week 6 of The Artist Way. This week was abundance, and this was a really, really interesting week and weird for me because it's about money. I had to think about money, and as if I haven't thought about money enough in my lifetime. It actually made me think that I very rarely think critically about money. I just think of it as a nebulous source of fear and anxiety, but we'll get into that when I show you some of the prompts and whatnot. I have 115 subscribers now, which is awesome. And I think when I made last week's video, it was like 40 or something, and I received this awesome, crazy comment. I'm gonna pull it up really quickly. There's been a lot of really, really nice comments. Anyone who has left a nice, encouraging comment, I hope you know that not only have I read it, but I have cherished it and probably written it down somewhere. I'm pretty motivated to continue to pursue what I want to pursue, but to receive like encouraging comments like that in real life or online or whatever is so good to recenter me. It makes me know that what I'm doing has an effect on anything, and it keeps me motivated and it keeps me pursuing what I want to pursue. So thank you. Here's one comment that I got that I thought was really cool. Your perspective of not delaying releases because you will always be improving is wisdom beyond your age. I feel lucky to have found your music. 69 subs 2 days ago, 113 now. You might be the right artist for this odd time. This comment makes me feel like I'm standing on like a precipice and I'm looking over the edge, and I can see that something like is starting right now. And I've been doing this shit for like 8 years, 9 years, you know, I'm almost 22 now. I feel like it's happening. I feel like it's starting to happen. The speed at which it's starting to happen feels record-breaking to me. It feels very fast, which is funny because it's actually still very slow and manageable. But I keep thinking about how like I read some quote, maybe in How to Do Nothing by Jenny Odell. It's one of the books I'm reading right now. Could be something else. I'm not sure what the source was, but he was talking about observing a marble cutter slamming again and again and again into like a big slab of marble with no effect and no result. And then, you know, the first 99 strikes against the marble will do nothing, but then in the 100th, you watch the marble split clean apart. I brought this up this weekend to my friend who I was recording music with, and I referenced that to him in the way of like we would do a bunch of takes and they would seem like they would be useless once we finally got the right take, and it was like, okay, why'd we do all those other ones? But I think it's just like the marble. I think that had we not done all of those takes, the final one wouldn't have sounded so good, and so I think none of it was wasted. And the same can be applied to pretty much any artistic endeavor or anything that takes effort, you know, breaking or starting a habit, which is always something that I struggle with. I keep trying to tell myself, like, you never know which strike is going to be the one to cut the marble. In the context of posting shit on YouTube, that seems like a little bit like an extrapolation, but I think the same principle applies, and I'm very excited to see the marble break, but even more so, I'm excited to just be along for the ride, see where this goes. It was a very fruitful weekend. I went and visited San Luis Obispo. I recorded one of the last album songs that has yet to be recorded. It's called Pictures of Shrimps in the Sea, and it is an entirely acoustic song. I was recording with my buddy Ryan, who I have had a very intimate music making relationship with basically the whole time that I've been recording music, so the last 2.5 years or so. And so then we also were able to record this interview. I'm gonna air that on my radio show. My idea for that segment is to have artists of all kinds, artists that I've really admired in some regard, some of those being my close friends, some of them being, you know, people that maybe I reach out to explicitly for the purpose of having interviewed them, and have them on my show and just have this kind of open format conversation about creativity. And man, can I talk a lot. So I need someone who can talk more somehow. So that, of course, was my buddy Ryan Marienthal. That'll be up on my channel soon. We went to a cafe we always go to, had this long conversation, hung out all day. My buddy Sam Cohn got like a video of a lot of that recording process. It has inspired me to keep documenting the album making process at like a higher level. Like, I'm doing these videos, and I think that this is kind of serving as an album documentation process, because the album should hypothetically be done in 1 month. And so anybody who is interested in listening to that will be able to go back and watch these videos and see me through the process of finishing it. Yeah, what else did I do? I think I've told you guys I've been cold plunging and submerging my heart, and I've been getting everybody that I know to do the same thing. I submerged my heart with my dear friend Ava. I had a big freak out about my digital footprint, just because I'm sharing so much of my life so intimately on here. And it's not stuff that is truly so deep and personal to me that I think that it should be kept a secret from the internet. And I really hope that my authenticity in doing this is resonating with people, and it seems like it is, you know. And I don't put too much of an act on for these videos. They are edited, but I just kind of say whatever. It just worried me suddenly thinking of how much access, you know, someone could potentially have to my life on the internet. So I'm just reckoning with that. I don't know. And then I watched Black Mirror right after freaking out about all of that with all my friends, and we got really, really, really scared, and it put us in a terrible mood. So if you're thinking of watching the new Black Mirror, don't watch Common People first, because that one was, I hated it. It was pretty good, but I don't fuck with that. I don't, that destroyed my mental state for like a couple hours at least. But other than that, I had a very calming, you know, weekend. I saw my friend's band, just had a wonderful time, very relaxing. Lots of very fulfilling conversations about creativity. And I talked to a lot of my friends about what I'm doing right now, about the artist way. Because they've been seeing like my videos and whatnot, or my updates on my social media about it, and just asking me a lot of questions, which is really cool. I didn't intend to become a resource for questions about creativity, but I've been able to answer a lot of them better the more that I've immersed myself in my own creativity. Like, I've been able to provide more guidance to people who might be asking, you know, how do I get started, like, pursuing my own creative ideas? This is something that we talked about very extensively in the interview, hence why I am recommending that you guys watch it if you are asking yourself, where do I start with pursuing my own creativity? You know, this is the number one thing that people will say to me when I say that I'm an artist, or like they see my creative output, is like, I wish I could do that. And that, like, I don't, that makes me very sad to hear, but I understand why people say it. I think that we have this very fixed idea of creativity, of like, this is the amount that I have instilled in me, and I either am or am not a creative person. And you know, the creators of the world it's our artists, our musicians, and our, you know, public figures, public emblems of creativity. And then, you know, there's just the other people who are maybe skilled in a different way. I mean, that's so antithetical to, at least just to the artist's way, in which Julia Cameron argues that we are all artists and we are all creative, and that creativity is not like a finite resource that like some of us can't have. Even beyond the artist's way, I just think that that's like, that sentiment just rings very true for me. Certain things make me a little bit more inclined towards the specific kind of art that I make. You know, I'm a pretty good singer. I have, you know, an eye, or an ear, I guess, for certain production choices and things like that. But like, I was pretty fucking bad when I started, like, objectively. But I wasn't placing value judgments on if my art was good or not. And that obviously is not the point of expressing your creativity, is to immediately be like, how can I make this better? It's the joy of creation that keeps driving you to create more and more, even if it's dog shit, because it's not dog shit. You get what I'm trying to say, I hope. If you want to hear me be a lot more articulate about it, listen to the interview. It'll be up later this week. It's very illuminating, I think, into how Ryan and I started working with each other, and he just has a lot of really interesting things to say about the creative process, almost like a inadvertently spiritual approach to creativity that I just think is so cool. And both of us have had this like crazy creative awakening since meeting each other and since going through college. It felt like an end of college recap of being like, what have we learned so far? And, you know, what have we learned from each other, and also from like this really thriving music scene that both of us belong to. Yeah, it's just some really, really interesting insights. Again, watch the interview. I can't recap them all here. I have to get into the material of the video, which is week 6 abundance. Yeah, this was money week. As I'm sure it is in many people's lives, I've had a very difficult relationship with money throughout my life. I always say that the two things that make me cry the most are romance and money is always number one. I started by kind of examining my own socioeconomic status throughout my life, and my parents, and just some of the attitudes that maybe I've developed surrounding money in the past. And I thought that was going to be an important framework to like lay down for me to think about, like, okay, what do I actually think about abundance, and in what ways does money freak me out and control me? For context, I grew up pretty middle class until I was about 10 years old. We lost a lot of our money, and then I spent a lot of time thinking about being poor, but I didn't really know what being poor meant. I just knew that poor people shit was happening to us, and that money was a huge stressor for both my parents, especially my mom. And so then, therefore, became a stressor for me. Only much later have I actually been able to break down what our income looks like and be like, okay, if you're looking at the numbers, I belong to the lower middle class. Having the conception of what like class I belong to economically has made me label myself in certain ways and decide what is and isn't for me in this life in kind of a weird, unexpected way. I never felt any shame about being poor. Why should I? It hasn't really been our fault. I've always had a conception of how fucked up and evil capitalism is, and now I'm a sociologist. And so now I really have a conception of how fucked up and evil capitalism is. My parents both grew up really poor, and they weren't ashamed, of that upbringing, and so why should I be? But I think that it didn't make me label myself as like a, fucking lazy poor person who doesn't deserve anything in this life. It was just more like, I was very quick to categorize things as like, that's rich people shit, and like, I don't know about that, and that's not for me. I frown upon a lot of that rich people shit. I think that the way that felt better to approach my own money situation was to take some pride in it almost, and to be like, I recognize that having gone through this really hard thing at a young age gave me some grit and gave me a lot of determination. I didn't feel like money controlled me, and I felt like being poor and still having so much determination and so much resolve made me feel like I was free. And my mind wasn't in poverty. And my desires weren't in poverty. And I was like, I'm free, and capitalism fucks us up, equally. And so I'm not aspiring, my whole life to having a bunch of money. And I haven't really made any of my life plans around money at all. I think a lot of that honestly is good and has been good for me. But when Julia was talking about luxury at the beginning of the chapter, I started thinking about my own economic situation in relation to that. And I realized that I don't think that I've deemed luxury as something for myself. And I think that I frown upon it. Like when I think of the word luxury, I immediately think of like overconsumption. And I think of blissful ignorance that is afforded to you by having an upper middle class lifestyle or upbringing. I just have a really negative perception of the idea of living in luxury. But also the definition of luxury isn't synonymous with all of those things. Let me actually look up the definition of luxury. Let me not talk out my ass, as I am often known to do. Luxury, the state, goddammit. Luxury, the state of great comfort and extravagant living. And it says synonyms include opulence, luxuriousness, sumptuousness. I guess that doesn't necessarily have to correspond to money. Extravagance is associated with money, and comfort is associated with money, and God knows that my life was not comfortable in some ways, especially when I was so worried about just the basic things in my life being accounted for. I mean, I had a roof over my head. That is a great comfort. But we had to move a lot because we couldn't make rent. And, our car got repoed at one point. And I was just at school. I was like, so, hey, when am I getting picked up? And my mom was like, you're not, because our car is getting repoed. I did not feel like I was living in a state of luxury at that time. But I feel weird often now because I recognize that I have these two things that are very at odds with each other. On one hand, I grew up with not a lot of money, and with money being a huge stressor. And on the other hand, there's all these ways that I'm like extremely, extremely privileged regardless. I'm recording this on a MacBook right now. The screen has been broken for 1 year because I can't afford to replace it. But I have a MacBook right now. I go to university. I am the first in my family to ever go to college. And I'm at a university that if I was paying tuition would be like $40,000 a year. Now, granted, I'm not paying tuition, and they're actually paying for me to go there because my family is poor. But does it matter? I'm receiving the same education. I just feel like I'm going to this university. I have this great privilege to be learning in like a truly beautiful environment, and I have the privilege of education. But then it's also like at any time, if my financial aid is gone, my education is gone, you know, and there's no safety net. And so in times where they've delayed my financial aid, or, you know, something wrong has happened in the system, it's like, okay, am I going to school then? And so I have this privilege that hinges on so much that is beyond my own control, and that is scary to me. Things like having this like incredible technology like this MacBook, but my screen is shattered, and once it finally shatters, like for real, I poured my cellar water on it at one point, so it is kind of my own fault. But once it shatters, it's like, what do? I can't be like, hey mom, can you buy me a MacBook? You know, I live in this like incredible house right now in such a beautiful area, but it's a very lucky situation I found myself in. You know, my rent is paid for by my university, and I happened to find this, you know, cheap rent for the quality of living being so high too. I don't know, I'm really trying to switch to that about money, because I think my ideas about money influence my ideas about everything else. I've written a lot of my sociology papers on how we've taken the principles of capitalism as like an economic system and just applied them to every fucking thing in our lives. And I think that's very like human of us to want like an easy answer for everything, and to take whatever, you know, model of power is currently dominant and be like, this must apply everywhere. I must be able to live my life by this framework. But like, you can't, because then you're a fucking freak in your interpersonal relationships, and they all become super transactional, you know, and you have these weird like market ideas that you apply to like dating and friendship. You start seeing everything in your life as like a finite resource, or like a resource that can be exploited basically, and like expanded upon and used for your own personal gain. And I can't handle it. And especially in the place that I am, the kind of community, I always say I go to Marxist lesbian school. I think my impulse anytime that I see this around me, or I see it in myself too, of course, my impulse is like, let me withdraw as much as possible. I reject anything that I deem synonymous with overconsumption and with the damaging effects of capitalism, and that includes luxury and abundance and living comfortably. And I've kind of subjected myself to a lot of extra poverty because I think ideologically I prefer my poverty over the alternative. This video might be like weird to some people who are just following me for you know, funny jokes and laughs, or like analyses of creativity. So I hope it's not too alienating, and that I'm not, you know, speaking in academic jargon and sounding annoying. Like I'm a sociologist. It kind of happens subconsciously. I also think it's really important to the process of the artist way and to these videos for me to talk about this, because I think that one of the biggest, if not the biggest, creative block that people experience is their ideas about money in relation to art. I would guarantee that anybody watching these videos has at some point thought, if not that they're currently thinking, that like they can't be an artist because they're gonna be broke as hell for the rest of their lives. Or that they alternately are just like, I didn't even consider the idea of being an artist and being broke for the rest of my life because it's so frivolous and like ridiculous, and artists are, you know, pretentious and what's the word I'm looking for? Trust fund children. or leeches. We have some really fucked up attitude about art, considering the fact that our entire society would, in my opinion, immediately go downhill if we weren't funding the arts. Actually, we see that. What do I say? If we can see that currently happening. If y'all live in America, and elsewhere as well, everything revolves around art, and we routinely devalue it. And so I think this is probably the most important chapter that we've had so far in The Artist's Way, and one of the most important things to talk about when you're talking about creativity is how's my subscription to capitalism, and how's my life under capitalism just like totally fucked up my idea of creativity, my ideas of my own creativity, and like what I'm gonna do with my life, etc., etc., etc. There was this part of the exercise called Money Madness, where you just fill out the statements as quickly as you can. If you've been following The Artist's Way, you've probably seen a lot of these. So I wrote down mine, and they came out, surprise, pretty negative, whatever my first impulse was, in a statement about money. I'm gonna just read them to you as quickly as I wrote them, basically. People with money are often out of touch. Money makes people into shells of themselves. I'd have more money if I spent it on less little stuff, coffee, parking, etc., and made bigger investments. My dad thought money was something anyone could have if they just pulled themselves up by their bootstraps. More on that in a minute. My mom thought money was the biggest stressor in this life. In my family, money caused endless stress. Money equals either freedom or complete lack thereof. If I had money, I'd travel, develop my style, be generous with it, feel free to pursue my dreams. If I could afford it, I'd go to hella festivals and so many more trips. If I had some money, I'd pay off all my parking tickets. Let me actually... Hey, no parking ticket on my car currently. Always something to worry about. I'm afraid that if I had money, I'd be even more ruled by it than I am now. Money is the root of all evil. Money causes dehumanization, war, societal decline. Having money is not something that feels inherent to me or my family. In order to have more money, I'd have to work a different and potentially soul-crushing job. When I have money, I usually spend it very quickly, but my purchases are usually not that dumb. I think money is generally evil. If I weren't so cheap, I'd travel more. People think money will complete them. Being broke tells me I'm being authentic to myself. In that last sentence, I feel like I was like, damn. Like, I see brokenness as so integral to my personality at this point, and to the person that I am. I can't even fathom like a different existence. And that, I would say, is not really, that I don't need to be doing all that. I don't think that I would actually be surrendering my values and going against my views of capitalism if I was like, I don't want to be so broke that I fucking die and starve and die. I have been so broke that I've been losing, insane amounts of weight and not able to eat and not able to go to the grocery store. I had a long time where like even my government benefits were like being denied to me, and I just had like nothing. Like, I TBH don't want to live that way. But I've almost seen it as like a necessary evil. Not even a necessary evil. I think I have had some faith in myself that I will be able to make enough money to live with some semblance of comfort and not, completely sacrifice my moral grounds. It's something that I consider like, that might have to be my life. I might have to be that poor. I don't know. I don't know how to feel about that. It's the thing with my parents, and with my dad's attitude towards money versus my mom's, is that both my parents grew up really poor. Neither of them went to college. They both worked like in the service industry for many years, worked in restaurants and whatnot. They are somewhat good examples of not letting your socioeconomic background define you and being able to create success for yourself. My parents also are famously like broke with expensive taste. They're like sommeliers. They went on all kinds of crazy adventures in their 20s and 30s. And a lot of our money was spent on trips and traveling, which, you can see comes up a lot in my prompts, is that I really want to get out of America. Not even just America. I just want to go somewhere else. I live in a beautiful, awesome, beautiful place. It's just everybody I know is traveling all the time. I want to go traveling so bad. Dude, college is almost over. I haven't left the country since I was like 6 years old. Unless you count Canada. I want to leave. I want to leave so bad. I want to leave. Anyway, but they left. And they went to, Jazz Fest and Mardi Gras. And they went to Germany when they were in their like later 20s, and they went to St. Lucia for like their anniversary. They went to all these awesome places. I admire that so much, knowing that that was on like a server's salary, and that I think their lives have perpetuated this idea of exceptionalism in my life. But then I get really frustrated when my dad's attitude towards money is anybody can pull themselves up by their bootstraps like I did. You know, I think that my dad was very lucky and in many ways very privileged, and as was my whole family, even if we were poor. I get frustrated at that attitude. You know, I feel like I could apply that to myself maybe, but I wouldn't apply that to the broader world around us, in which the economy is completely fucked, and like a large part of America is disadvantaged from the beginning of, you know, their lives under the system. I don't know, I just get frustrated at that. But his attitude has also changed like quite a bit in the last 10 years. I'm trying to balance those two things of being like my own conception, or I guess our conceptions of everything are going to be skewed. Obviously our conceptions towards creativity are going to be screwed, but then at the same time I don't want my mind to be in prison and in poverty the way that maybe my body is, you know, if that makes any sense. I don't know. This can't be like a video about economic theory or I'm gonna lose my fucking mind. But like, I've had to come to terms even very recently with the fact that like I'm gonna be an artist for the rest of my life, and I want to be successful at this. And that is a daunting prospect when you're already poor, and it's like, I'm gonna be poorer. But also it's like, can I really determine what's going to happen to me before it happens? Is that not my mind being in poverty jail? If the only life I can conceptualize for myself as an artist involves, you know, no luxury, no success, no general quality of living, I don't know if I believe that. I think that it would be willfully very ignorant for me to deny the privileges that I do have and the abilities that I do have. And even just in the fact that I'm like young and able-bodied and live in California, and right now the school is paying for me to live, basically. Like, these are insane privileges that I do need to not only like acknowledge, but I need to be realistic with myself and look at my life and be like, what do I have the ability to do right now? I have the ability tonight to go to the studio at the school that pays for me to go there to record my album for free in the program that I got into because I was both lucky and talented. And then I will take those recordings and I will send them to my friends who live in this different town, who I still have maintained this very close relationship with, because I have gas money given to me by the university to drive my car down there like once every month and go hang out with my friends who I'm so lucky to have met and to have now. And I can send them my music and I can be like, hello, my beautiful, talented musician friends, can you play music on my album? And I have met them because I've been able to belong to these amazing, thriving music communities in these areas I've had the privilege to live in. Like, I am surrounded inherently by so much abundance. I can't generalize any of this to other people because I don't know what anybody else's situation is, but I would greatly urge anybody who has any ability in this life to pursue their creativity, any ability, any margin of ability, whether you are incredibly lucky and privileged enough to have a university paying for you to live, or parents paying for you to live, you know, or another resource, all the way down to somebody who has maybe an hour of free time a day because they're working full time. Anybody who has the ability to express their creativity, whatever resource you have afforded to you to do it, like, I just truly think that this is what our lives are about and should be about. And I think this should be a priority that we take all individually so seriously. And it breaks my heart that it isn't being taken seriously on a grander level, and that our arts are being defunded, you know, by our government, and that we have these really capitalist conceptions of art. It sucks ass, but we can't have our brains also assimilate to it. Any semblance of mental freedom that you have, I don't know. I'm talking in a very impassioned and maybe not super realistic way for everybody, and I understand that, but I am starting to really recognize the own abundance in my life, the own luxury in my life that I can afford myself, especially in regards to my creativity, and it's a huge thing for me. I can only wish that for every other person who comes in contact with these videos. So anyway, yeah, my life feels beautiful and abundant right now. The sun was out for a brief second there, and it just got cloudy again. I'm gonna go to the studio tonight, and I need to pee so badly. I had a dirty chai down the street at a beautiful cafe, because I live in the town where I can just go and get a dirty chai from my local coffee shop, and my local coffee shop's also really, really cheap, which is awesome. So it's like $3.50 for a dirty chai. Actually, it was like $5 because I added a bunch of shit. But my point is that like that in itself is a great example of abundance. Even look, my wall is covered in art by my like friends and people that I was in music organizations with and art organizations with. That's a poster from a festival that I went to for free, that I'm going to for free again in a couple weeks, God fucking willing. And like that's a set list from one of my shows that I've been able to play with my friends. I just got these bed sheets the other day from IKEA. I got this rock that I found on the beach many years ago. That's like a hag stone. Like you look through it, it's like a portal to another universe, allegedly. I got this ring from a yard sale the other day that I went to with my friend Ava, and the lady who was selling it gave it to me for free because she said that somebody gave it to her for free when she was having a bad day once, and she felt that she needed to return the favor. So it's like a cherry blossom ring that I got for free, and some nail polish I got for $1 from the same girl. Everything feels abundant and beautiful, essentially, if you even care. One of the tasks this week was to like collect rocks and to collect flowers and any other example of natural abundance. And not only have I been collecting rocks and flowers, but other people have collected them for me. I went to the beach with my friends Ava and Rowan and Advika got me a piece of green sea glass. I felt loved. Then I ate oysters with Ava, and I felt loved too, even though I paid for the oysters. I just felt loved by the universe for giving me an opportunity to eat oysters, which always feels like the highest fucking form of luxury to me, even when it's like $1 per oyster. Life can be so beautiful, as Ava always says. She says, life can be so beautiful, and then I say, it's insane how beautiful life can be. It's like a call and response. I have given away 5 pieces of ratty clothing. I've definitely given away more than that. I have a lot of clothes that don't fit. I also, this actually might not be helping my digital footprint, but anybody who has a period knows that you have your like period underwear that you keep for like far past the point where you should have, because like you don't want to ruin like your nice underwear. But I finally threw away some of the period underwear that like really was on its last fucking legs, and I'm just replacing it slowly with like black cotton underwear that will stay looking nice. That's a luxury. That's a luxury to have black cotton underwear as your period underwear and not a 7-year-old pair of underwear that is like horrifying to look at. So that's a way I would encourage anybody watching this to fill their life with abundance. Throw away your old period underwear. If it's more than like 3 years old, like maybe consider replacing it. I haven't sent letters yet. I sent postcards last summer to my friends, and that was a rewarding experience, so maybe I will do that again. It has been a good week. It's made me think a lot. I'm very, very excited to see how this channel keeps growing, and I've been very thankful for the ways that it's grown already. And keep your eyes peeled for some music coming up, and perhaps some music videos, and maybe even music interviews, and it's gonna be really fun, guys. Stay blessed.